So I am here today to do my card collections. We're going to start with my tarot collection. We're going to start with my first deck all the way through to my most recent deck. I'm going to go ahead and get started right away. This is Witch's Tarot. This was originally produced in the 80s, from what I understand. This deck was given to me. Unfortunately, this deck also has never worked for me. Hey! Sorry, I've got hissy-fitting kitties in the video. I like the pictures in this deck for some of it. The court cards are recycled. I don't like that. As you can see, let me go back to this king. It's the same king. They just changed the colors. I don't like that. And it's like that for all of the court cards. I don't know where my brain is right now. I'm sorry. Some of the cards are pretty cool. For the most part, I don't know. This deck doesn't speak to me, and it doesn't speak to me. Literally. Not only does it not appeal to me, but it just doesn't work for me. If I do get anything out of this deck, it is like little peaks, and it just, I don't know. It just doesn't work. The Lover's card, I think, is kind of cool, and the Death card, I think, is kind of cool. And I really, really, really like the High Priestess, which is, like, back towards the end of the deck, if I remember right. Because I was just looking through this right before I decided to film. Oh, yeah, because there's the High Priest. I really just want to show you all this High Priestess, because she's always been my favorite in this whole deck. There she is. I really liked the High Priestess. This has always been my favorite card. I keep hoping that one day this deck is finally going to give up and talk to me, but I don't know. I might be ancient by the time it happens. I do keep this just for collection purposes. You can still get this deck. It is still being published as far as I'm aware, but I don't know. Now we're going to go to my second and third deck, which is a duplicate deck. The story here is I bought this Rider-Waite Tarot pack on Amazon for like $20 in my mid-20s when I actually heard on a podcast that the Rider-Waite deck was the easiest to work with. The actual Rider-Waite deck, not just an inspired by. So I bought the deck. I was loving it. It came with a lot of cool tidbits. This is my old deck in here. It has this little Celtic cross layout explanation. It had a card with the artist Pamela Coleman Smith's story on it. It'd be great if I didn't have felines all in my video. This is what happens when, your gut tells you to do something, you don't listen. Okay, so it's got her story and her history. She tends to be ignored, so that's pretty cool to see. But, yeah, this is my original deck. This is the first one I bought. You can see it's a little dirty and a little loved. Basically what had happened, my ex-husband thought it would be fun to give my cards away for some drug deal or other. And when I got the deck back, I realized after I got settled and off the streets that I was missing a card. So I repurchased this. This is actually the new box. I got it back. It's got the blue Tudor rose back on it. And it's just the regular Rider-Waite. This deck has actually worked for me. This is how I realized that I could definitely read tarot. This is how I realized I was an intuitive reader. This deck is my go-to, 100%. Rider-Waite Smith is what I like. For the pictures, this speaks to me the most. It is not the only deck that speaks to me through pictures, and we're getting ready to talk about that now. I know everybody knows what these cards look like, so we don't need to keep wasting time looking at them. So, put this away. The next deck, actually, let me correct myself. I had said that was my second and third deck. This would actually be my second deck. This would be my third, and then this would be my fourth. This deck, the Parrott Tarot deck, I actually got this at the Maryland Renaissance Festival for $15. And this deck is cool for a couple reasons. It is inspired by the Rider-Waite-Smith system. It uses the Rider-Waite-Smith system for the pictures, but it has its own meanings. It also has 4 new cards called the Mentors, and I finally found the paper to go with the Parrott deck. It talks about the layouts and explains the meanings, but it does switch the meanings up. Like, case in point, the discs, which would be the pentacles. The ace of discs is material gain, labor, power, and wealth. Reversed is greed, hoarding, abuse. Come on, boss. Greed, hoarding, abuse of power or wealth, collapse of empire. 2 of discs is a harmonious change, sharing, visiting friends. But then when you actually get into the cards, you see there's a little keyword. It is cool because it has the astronomical sign, the keyword, and its playing card equivalents to go with it. So that's pretty cool. This is a unique 8 of Wands. Usually it's just the wands across with the Rider-Waite-Smith, but 3 of Cups is abundance, and then you got the astronomy and all of that. On some of these, the bird carries a bit of song that is supposed to like help you tune to the card. The Major Arcana also carries the Jewish letter. I think that also relates to the Tree of Life, if I remember right. But as you can see, a little bit of song. And I mean, you can see the differences. I like the backs on these as well. It's pretty colorful, and I like the astronomy and all the symbols and the yin yang. I love the art on this. I did not know how to read these. You have a prince and a princess, a queen and a king, and a mentor in between the princess and the queen. So until I found the paper, which I just found it today, I didn't know how to read this deck, so I haven't really used it. I'm going to try and make a point to use this more in 2020. The size of the card is smaller, as you can see, as compared to the Rider-Waite. It's a much smaller, more like a playing card size. So it'll be easier for me to use with my hands. And I don't know, I want to get to know this deck. I feel like I have been lacking with this deck, we'll put it that way. Worry for the 5 of discs or pentacles, I don't know. I guess that could be a keyword for that, but I don't typically think of it. I don't like the fact that the Minor Arcana doesn't really have pictures. As you can see, it's just like a shape. But I was just reading that this is actually a pretty good way to make your intuition come to life. So I want to at least give this deck a shot. I'm going to try and work with it and get to know it and see what happens. I hadn't connected to this deck yet, so I don't know. We'll see. This is not in print anymore. I will say that before I put it up. You can find it on Amazon used. I can't remember if I saw it new or not, but if you do see it new, make sure that you double check that it is not a ripoff. This is an S.S. Adams Company deck by Margaret Parrott, artist, with the guidance of Tom Parrott. I'm sorry. I don't know if they're married or relatives, but this is what the box should look like with the Mentor of Cups on it. Just make sure you don't get a rip-off deck, okay? And see Princess's discs. I would imagine that the prince is like the page, the princess is like the knight. The meanings have nothing to do with each other, so I really don't know. Like I said, we're going to try and get to know this deck this year and work with it more. And my most recent deck, well, I have one in the mail It'll be here Friday. But until that, my most recent deck is the Game of Thrones Tarot. I love this deck. I'm glad I found it. It is purely Rider-Waite-Smith with Game of Thrones characters. And the one thing that I like about this deck, let me pull the deck out of the box here, is the characters that they chose are either so perfectly that card or so perfectly not that card that no matter how you look at it, it will make you remember what the card is supposed to mean. So if you're a Game of Thrones fan and you're having trouble remembering the meanings of the cards, and your intuition isn't woken up just quite yet, this might be a good way to go. But you would have to be like a super fan, really understand their temperaments and their personality types for that to work. I do not see Varys as the Hierophant. Look, I'm doing it again, the Hierophant. So for me, that makes me think of exactly what I picture him as, and to me, it still makes me remember. The Two of Cups is 2 cups bound together with the Southern marriage vows, I guess is the way you would say it. Father Smith warrior, mother maiden crone, stranger, I am his, he is mine, from this day until the end of my days. That is part of the vows. If you remember the flashback episode watching Rhaegar marry Lyanna, you'll remember hearing them say that. The 6 of Coins, we have Varys again, giving coins to one of his little birds. I know this means charity, but to me this also adds, having somebody spy on you. So it does add a little layer. The 9 of Swords. We already know the 9 of Swords is anxiety. But when I look at this, Grey Wind should be more than able to destroy those bars and jump through, if not just squeeze right through. So to me, this adds a layer of being too anxious and afraid to realize you can let yourself free. He's not trapped. He could let himself out, but his fear and his anxiety are keeping him caged. So some of these cards it actually really adds to. The one complaint I did have was how easy it was, as you can see here, for my cats to bend it up. Because as you can tell, when I pull my tarot out, they're right here, always. And I don't know. I was a little disappointed in that, but Jon Snow is the Emperor. I don't think he really has the togetherness that the Emperor should have, but I don't know. Some of his traits are Emperor traits, and again, it helps me to remember. So if you're a real Game of Thrones fan, but you have trouble remembering, this could be a key. I might also say that, look, if there is something that you're a fan of, see if it has a tarot. The same thing might work with that. I couldn't promise, but it's a thought. So anyway, this is the end of my tarot collection. The tarot that I have coming is the Radiant Wise Spirit Tarot, which looks like almost identical to the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, but is more colorful, it's prettier, and it's got a prettier back. So that was my collection. Don't mind my ugly walls, they're all stained up. I will see you guys again shortly with my Oracle cards. And until then, I will talk to you again soon. Rate, comment, subscribe, hit that little bell for notifications. Bye, y'all.